life right now.
Get in on the action this season with Underdog Fantasy's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Let's go! What's going on, Chargers fans? It's the Director. My goodness, man. What a game we witnessed yesterday. This feels like a dream, man. I'm sorry, but honestly, watching Jim Harbaugh get to work and seeing what he's been working on and what this team has been building throughout the course of the entire offseason, it all feels like I'm living in an alternate dimension, right? Where the Chargers actually made the big coaching hire and we're starting to reap the rewards from it. This is insanity to me, man. This ain't your daddy's Chargers, dude. This is something fresh, something different. And in some ways, I guess it is kind of, right? An old school mentality and way of playing football that quite honestly is working out for this team. And honestly, the biggest thing that I got to tell you, man, that I'm so excited, spoiler alert for this video, is how this team is so different in terms of its discipline and its adjustments. As a Chargers fan, for how many years, man, 15, 16, 17 years, I don't think in that time I've ever seen the Chargers adjust quite as well as this. And of course, that's being a little dramatic. Of course, we've seen it a few times, right? But this is something that stems from consistency in Jim Harbaugh's career, and it really does spell a really good and bright future for the Chargers, both this season and for many seasons to come. Let's go ahead and break down this win, man. Go over some of my favorite moments from this game, some things that we can learn, some things that we can get hyped up about as the season does go on. Before we do kick things off, man, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. New users, definitely take advantage of the free picks that are being thrown out there right now. I'm going to say this right now, too, guys. As someone who plays a lot of Underdog Fantasy, take advantage of all of the specials. There's always going to be free picks and vulture and insurance and all that kind of stuff. These are things that will definitely help you out in catching some dubs, man. I myself made a couple $100 this weekend. So if you guys want some of my picks, definitely check it out on Twitter. I like to post them there every single week. Before we do kick things off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it, baby. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history.
Your Chargers versus Raiders post-game report. My voice is still recovering, man. We had 2,000 Chargers fans in the chat last night, man. It was awesome. It was epic. And thank you guys. I just got to tell you, thank you for so much of that support last night. It was truly an awesome experience. Chargers fans flooding the comments and the hype, coming to a head from all of the waiting this offseason. It truly was an experience, and I'm very much so looking forward to it again this Sunday versus the Panthers. Let's just jump right into our first talking point here, man. The Jim Harbaugh era is here. This is, again, like I said at the top of the video, something that Chargers fans have been waiting for so long. We have been starved of competent coaching for the longest time, decades and decades. In my time as a Chargers fan, I was very new and fresh during Marty Ball. But Norv Turner is probably the only one where I kind of knew, I was like, hey, okay, Norv, sure, we'll see what happens there. But everybody else has just kind of felt like, what are we doing? I guess we're taking a stab, and then every other year we're taking a stab. This is the first time, at least in my serious fandom, that I can tell you, this is a guy that walked in with pedigree, that walked in with history of success and knew what the heck he was doing. And it feels like from the get-go, from the moment that his plane landed in LA, from the moment that he walked to the stand and started talking to the Chargers fans in that initial press conference, from the moment that he signed his contract to be the Chargers head coach, he had a plan that he was laying in. And the Chargers, who for the first time again in my fandom, who were open to letting Jim Harbaugh cook, open to letting Jim Harbaugh create a culture, create a way, create an identity, finally let everything unfold. And to see Jim Harbaugh and all of that planning and all of that work and all of that strategy finally bubble to the surface and show us the results of all of that work makes me so ecstatic to be a Chargers fan right now, guys. This is the era. If you guys have been Chargers fans for a few years, for 5 years, for a decade, for way longer, I know there's guys out there since the 70s and 80s. If you guys have been a Chargers fan for a long time, the wait is over. It's here, man. The Jim Harbaugh, I have no doubt in my mind that the Jim Harbaugh era is going to be the era where Chargers fans feast. We will be contenders. We will be serious playoff threats. We will be a differently viewed team by season's end because of the Jim Harbaugh effect, the era. It is here, and we got to see the very first preview of that in week 1. Now, again, it's week 1. Everyone's going to say, oh, you're overreacting. You're throwing down, yada, yada. I totally get it, man. We're going to see some bumps in the road. We are. We're going to see some growing pains. We will, okay? But the fact of the matter is, we are finally on the right track. I don't care who you are, man. We'll even take examples from within the division. The Denver Broncos were a sinking ship until Sean Payton got there. They're still growing and figuring it out, but they're a heck of a lot better than they were a couple of seasons ago. Why not the Chargers? Why not Jim Harbaugh, fresh off a natty? Why not one of the winningest coaches in football history? It's here. And those fundamentals and those ideals have sunk into the minds and hearts of the Chargers and in that locker room. Toughness, physicality. This team is headstrong, energetic. You see it, you feel it, you know it, and the results are here. But probably, again, like I alluded to at the top of the show, one of the biggest things in the Harbaugh era that gets me stoked, the experience and the adjustments. As a Chargers fan, watching us go into the locker room, what were we? Was it like 6 to 7 or something like that? Very poor offensive performance in the first half. Not a lot of momentum. Chargers fans a little bit worried. Stomach was turning a little bit. To watch us go into that locker room and to see us run out with the energy, the enthusiasm, and the adjustments to create success was really something to behold. And what I mean by that is, in seasons past, as a Chargers fan, I would watch us run into the locker room in that situation and then run back out doing exactly the same thing, hoping for different results. It never worked out. That sucked. I would watch us run into the locker room with the lead and then come out with the mentality of playing conservative and watch us blow games, become the choker team. This was a different team, man. We ran into the locker room. Jim Harbaugh and his team figured it out, and we walked out that tunnel. We came out in the second half, all cannons firing, man. It was awesome. The offense found a rhythm. The defense continued to feast, and the team found a way to score despite what the Raiders were doing that was finding a lot of success in the first half on defense. They were pretty tough. Let's pay dividends to the opponent a little bit here because it does speak to how strong this team is right now. The Raiders are tough. They are tougher this year. I can tell. Just as a Chargers fan that's been watching the Raiders over and over and over, for whatever reason this year, these guys are very physical. They're very tough, and I think that defense is going to be something. The Chargers figured it out anyway. They out-toughed them. They out-physicality them. Whatever you want to call it. They Jim Harbaugh'd them into submission. It was awesome. And the biggest thing that made me happy about that is that we didn't lose ourselves along the way. This is going to be a team that runs the football. This is going to be a team that's physical, that's tough. And we found a way to commit to those identities, to committing to the run, while also adjusting to actually make it happen. The Raiders being pursuing and over-aggressive on defense, the Chargers found a way to get Justin Herbert rolling to create space in the run game. And then lo and behold, here goes J.K. Dobbins leading the league. I think it's like top 3 in yards, right? I actually had it written down right here. What did it say? J.K. Dobbins, second most rushing yards in the NFL through week 1. Second most. Jim Harbaugh's first year. As a matter of fact, the longest runs that we've seen as Chargers fans in the last 2 years was in Jim Harbaugh's debut game. And we're just getting started. Speaking of which, we got to move on. Jesse Minter. Sorry, guys. I am so burnt. This is one of the craziest weeks leading up to this game. Through the hype video, through my own hype as a fan, through the live streams, through all the breakdowns. I'm ready to kick my feet up, play some Apex Legends after this. Let's get on to the next talking point in this video. Jesse Minter. He is a freaking rock star. My word. Now, we were all excited about what his potential would be with this team. But I feel like, just like through us, the fans, throughout the NFL, he may have been outshined. by Jim Harbaugh. If the Chargers made a different head coaching hire, but still got Jesse Minter, Minter would have been at the top of the headlines. Everyone, oh my God, the Chargers got a real one at defensive, coordinator. It's going to be a new era of defense. And he kind of got lost in the shuffle with Jim Harbaugh, which of course probably would have never happened if Harbaugh didn't come here. Either way, Jesse Minter's a rock star. I think everyone is starting to wake up to that. And I'm not just saying Chargers fans. Chargers fans know what's up. You guys know what's going on. You guys follow this team. You get it, right? I'm talking about the rest of the NFL. The rest of the NFL starting to wake up to what the potential of a Jesse Minter-led Chargers defense is going to look like. This team is going to chew you up and spit you out if you are the opposing quarterback facing the Bolts. You are going down. It's been the overarching philosophy of Jesse Minter. They built a structure and a very firm foundation, starting with the edge, with the pass rush, and they've created a very unique and creative and ultimately very obviously successful system that Jesse Minter rolled out for the first time at full strength in week 1. We've seen, again, I think we saw better previews of Jesse Minter than we did of Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman in the preseason. We just got to see it multiplied and elevated in this first game. Now that you got Bosa and you got Derwin and you got all the starters in there, Jesse Minter, holy cow, man. I sure hope we get to keep him with this team at least 2 or 3 seasons. He is going to be a hot commodity for a future head coaching position within the next year. Please, Chargers, do what you got to do to keep this man around. Of course, Harbaugh's figured it out in the past, but right now, we are going to be one of the more dominant defensive teams in the NFL because of this man. Bravo, Jesse Minter. What a freaking debut, man. Now, let's move on to the next talking point, which, funny enough, if you guys watched my preview video, this was actually at the top of the things I was excited to see, which is really crazy to say because there's a lot going on with this team this year, but this is definitely one of the talking points I have seen everywhere on social media this morning. I saw it a lot last night too, but this morning, if you're looking for Chargers highlights, if you're looking for Chargers talking points in this game, 99% of them, I'll say 80% of them, revolve around our first round pick, Joe friggin' Alt. We got a real one, man. We got a real one. I mean, honestly, let's go back to Twitter real quick. This is an audible here, but I think it's very relevant, okay? Take a look what I posted this morning. After all the fuss, I gotta tell ya, Joe Alt was definitely the move all along. His highlights are incredible and maybe the best of all rookies in their season debut. Neighbors may be flashy, but Alt is dominant, and he's only gonna get better. He's only gonna get better, folks. Look at some of these. Pay attention to the left side of the screen. The length, the footwork, the anchor, the power, the discipline. Max Crosby was shut down. We all knew this was going to be a trial by fire, right? That Joe Alt, the rookie, the man switching to right tackle, was going to have a very tough matchup in his first ever NFL game. Max Crosby is one of the top, I'll say, 3 pass rushers in the NFL. You got, in my mind, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby. That feels pretty appropriate. Okay, the dude is absolutely insane. And us as Chargers fans, we had expectations to see Joe Alt go out there and put up a solid game. I don't think any of us expected to see what had happened actually in this game. I don't think none of us could have predicted that Joe Alt would have 11 one-on-one matchups with Max the Condor Crosby and allow 0 sacks and 0 pressures. Our rookie right tackle just shut down one of the most elite defenders in the NFL. Let that sink in for a second. And then think about what I tweeted. There's been a lot of noise since the offseason. Some from me at how the Chargers should have gone Malik Neighbors. You know what I mean? And sure, that could have been a good move for this team. Thinking about what Justin Herbert could do with Malik is definitely still exciting. But after week 1 and seeing how this team wants to build themselves up and how the team is going to be structured, and how special of an individual talent Joe Alt was, this was definitely the move all along. Because as crazy as it sounds, I think these highlights are more impressive than any other rookie in the NFL this week in their debut. I honestly do believe that. And you know how hard it is to pull that off from the offensive line position? You know how hard it is to get at the top of the highlights of the news in the NFL, of all of the talking points you're seeing on Twitter? To be at the top of it at the offensive line position is extremely difficult, especially coming out of a class with Malik Neighbors, with Marvin Harrison, with all of the huge talent. This is one of the most impressive draft classes I've seen in a long time with all that talent. And to see Joe Alt at the top of everything is absurd. It's awesome. It's amazing. And this just tells me that the Chargers got a real one. We got a good one, and we're going to be one of the most dangerous and strongest offensive line units in the NFL in the next few years. We're not done. I think the Chargers, they got some work to do in the interior, but for right now, those bookend tackles are elite. And it's crazy to think that week 1 versus Max Crosby, we can already kind of start thinking that about Joe Alt. Now again, we'll pump the brakes a little bit. We got some tough matchups coming up, including TJ Watt, who in my opinion is the best defender in the NFL, the best pass rusher in the NFL. He's coming up week 3. It's going to be tough. It's not going to get easier. But this is a really good sign, man. I'm very sold on Joe Alt, and I think he and Rashawn Slater are going to create the foundations of one of the best offensive lines in the game. You know who benefits from that? We're going to start with one of these guys right here. The running backs. Now, sure, again, the interior line I'm going to say is going to need a little bit of work. But the space created, which we saw a couple of times by Joe Alt on the right side, and yes, even by Slater, was definitely something that opened up the run game for the Chargers. Tip of the spear, like Jim Harbaugh likes to call him. And it worked. It really did. But what really worked on an individual level, too, was the efforts and the results of J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins is resurrected. You know how many of my friends are scrambling to the waiver wire this morning looking to pick up J.K. Dobbins, the new running back 1 of the Chargers? Everybody. And you know what? It's still early, and I still think there's going to be a hot hand mentality and a 1A and 1B kind of mentality of the Chargers, at least for right now. But I'm going to tell you guys right now, I was right. I think we called it, dude. How I've put out several videos. I actually went looking for some of the highlights last night, and I was watching some of them. I think I posted one on Twitter of how many times I was talking in my videos about how special J.K. Dobbins could be if he can stay on the field. Knock on wood that can still happen, but he's off to a really good start with Herbert, the new strength and conditioning coach. Okay. I was so convinced that if J.K. could stay on the field, that he could end up being a top 10 running back in the league. I think there's a lot of pushback to that, which is completely understandable. It's been a while since J.K. has been extremely relevant in the NFL, but guess what? He's still super young. He's 24 or 25 years old. He's had just an incredible amount of bad luck and unfortunate circumstance revolving around his health to start off his young career, but he is still young. And he proved that if he's on the field, he's as dangerous as any running back in the NFL. 10 carries, 135 yards and a touchdown is unbelievable. He had the most yards per touch in the NFL to start week 1. He's in a Jim Harbaugh offense. It's going to run the ball a lot. The offensive line is looking superb. He had, the longest run that the Chargers have seen in years. I think it was 2 or 3 seasons since we've seen a run of like 61 yards, which I think was his longest. J.K. Dobbins is for real, dude. I think even starting next week, we got to watch out for him to be the running back 1. We'll see how many carries he gets. I do still expect him and Gus Edwards to split carries in some capacity. But with only 10 carries and 135 yards this week, just imagine where the potential lies if he does get 15, upwards of 20 carries in a game. Gus Edwards, don't get me wrong. I still think he played an important role this week. He softened up that line. He took the big hits. He's the unsung hero in a lot of different ways of looking at it. But J.K. Dobbins brought that lightning, man. And I think the reason for his success, too, is maybe the interior line needs a little work. Gus Edwards not able to quite get the momentum that he needed. But the edge and the angles that that the tackles were able, and the lanes that the tackles were able to provide, J.K. Dobbins took full advantage of that. As a matter of fact, when we had Scott Matlock out there at fullback, there were times where Scott Matlock would help plug up the middle, and J.K. Dobbins had a couple of choices in front of him. Either go try and force a lane behind, Matlock, which is something I'm sure the Chargers are trying to do with Gus Edwards, or find some open space. And what he ended up doing was cutting to the left. He had a little lane open between the clump of the middle of the line and what Rashawn Slater was creating on the left side, and he shot out like a cannon. That was one of the big runs he had that day that contributed to the big 135 yards. And the shiftiness, the agility, the burst and acceleration, all on display, just as well as a mint out-of-box J.K. Dobbins 3 or 4 years ago. 3 years ago, I think. The one thing that I am concerned about that he did admit, okay, a lot of people are like, what's going on? Is he hurt? What's going on with J.K.? How come he couldn't finish the run? He did admit this in his interview in the locker room right afterwards, that he might be a little bit out of shape still because he got gassed at the end of that run. Everyone's like, why is he slowing down? He did get gassed. So he's going to have to figure that out. He says he's going to definitely make sure that he's in shape and work on himself that way. But man, did he have a good day. He's just going to get better. Just like Joe Alt, he's just going to get better. Next up. Dude, this is one of my favorite players since he was drafted. Again, I talk about this all the time on my channel. The year of Jalen Ramsey, I was so pumped up about him. We get Joey Bosa. I'm still pretty pumped. But he comes out here and he has just such a huge impact with the team. Melvin Ingram back then. I'm hyped up. I'm honestly becoming a huge Joey Bosa fan overnight. I played a lot of Madden back in the day. I actually had a lot of Madden videos that I was putting out. And Joey Bosa was one of my favorite players to have in Madden, to as a teenager just be completely, enveloped in terms of fandom. Like Joey Bosa was like my dude, right? And to see him come back this season after 2 disappointing years hindered by injury, and to have the kind of game he had really meant a lot to me as a Joey Bosa and Chargers fan, man. Joey Bosa is back. And he's representing what is an insane pass rush led by Jesse Minter. Unbelievable. I don't remember the actual sack total. I think it was like 3 or 4 sacks this week, which is so great. Bosa and Mack were constantly feasting. But what you really need to pay attention to, if you guys go watch the condensed version of that game, like the 30-minute version, you'll notice that Gardner Minshew really never had a play where he wasn't looking over his shoulder. The pressure was consistent and relentless. It never let up. Joey Bosa was devouring the Raiders. Khalil Mack was devouring the Raiders. Khalil Mack also with the fumble recovery was fantastic. We firmly knifed ourselves into the head of Gardner Minshew to the point where he was panicking so bad that he fumbled, throwing backwards to nobody, to ghosts. And here comes Fulton and Khalil Mack to pick it up and put the Chargers in position to score again. It was absolutely fantastic, and I firmly believe that's off the back of this Chargers pressure, this Chargers pass rush that was absolutely next level on Sunday. And they, again, that is going to be the staple. That is going to be the identity of this defense. And to see Joey Bosa back is so good to see, man. We have all been waiting, right? It feels like that meme. I've waited my whole life for times like this. We've all been waiting for the Bosa and Mack effect to be there in full display, right? I think it's this season, man. I really, really do. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, these guys played out of their minds week 1. Jesse Minter did a really good job at being creative with the pressure, right? We didn't quite see as many, defensive back blitzes as I thought we would. But he was out there a couple of times with all 4 premium pass rushers. Bosa, Mack, Bud, Tooley. He had Morgan Fox in there too at one point. All of them. Everybody in there. And it was working. All of this was working. The Chargers are for real on defense, man. This is something that is honestly, I think it's going to come out of left field for a lot of NFL fans. The Chargers becoming a dominant defensive team overnight is huge. We ranked bottom half of the league in so many different metrics last year in terms of defense. To see us flip a complete 180, and I'm being honest with you guys, I really do think we could end up being a top 3 pass rushing team in the NFL. I honest to God believe that we could end up being maybe even the number 1 team in sacks this year by the way this team is built. It's impressive. And, again, they're just getting started. Next up. Guys, a bit concerned about Justin Herbert. I'm going to tell you guys, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it right now, okay? Justin Herbert is ramping up. 144 yards, a touchdown. That is a meager stat line. But I'm going to tell you it's understandable. I watched every single snap. I went back and I rewatched the condensed version this morning. I watched highlights. I watched everything, okay? Herbert is a little bit rusty. And you can see it start to shake off after coming out of the tunnel. Okay, the first half did not look good at all for Justin Herbert through the passing game. I was so worried that we don't have any weapons, that Herbert his vision took a step back especially, and that it was going to be a long day of no offense for this team. And to be fair, again, he hasn't played a game since week 9 of last year. The rust was extremely obvious. But again, he got better as the game went on. You can almost think of this game, as funny as it sounds, as maybe like a preseason game for him. Sure, his chemistry with Ladd and Quentin Johnston, that might need kindling at this point, but it'll get there. This team is not the same team from last year where Justin Herbert has to run out there and play Superman and play hero ball every single week to keep this team from sinking. This team is built now to support Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert needed help this week. He really did. And you know what? The defense, the run game, they were there to pick him up. And it worked. And we won. Lightning Ladd. Lightning Ladd. You guys have no idea. To end the game the way we did, with a touchdown to the rookie, Ladd McConkey, could not have been more ceremonious and hype for me as a Ladd McConkey fan. You guys know me. Big McConkey fan even before the draft. He goes to us. I'm losing my mind. First game of the season. We're seeing him do some stuff, right? He looks good. I think he ended up, 5 receptions or something like that. He did fine. He did well, especially with the Justin Herbert that was still shaking off the rust. He did good. Route running was solid. Separation was great. But this touchdown in particular gave me a good preview of what the future holds of this season. Ladd McConkey takes it, I think it was a mesh route, finds a way to not juke out one, but 2 defenders. Beautiful moves. Makes his way into the end zone, touchdown. It was awesome. It was something to behold. And this is the reason I'll have him on here as his own segment. We do have weapons, okay? We just, again, like I said, we need time to kindle the chemistry between them and Justin Herbert in the coming weeks. And honestly, guys, we're set up beautifully to make that happen. Again, no disrespect to the Raiders. I mean, in most cases, yes. But in this case, no. As competitors, the Raiders are going to be, in my opinion, a pretty tough team, right? But with no disrespect, I'm going to say we can almost think of this as a preseason game for the offense, who needed some more time with their quarterback, who missed a majority of training camp, to build that chemistry and trust. And you can almost think the same thing with next week. We have the Carolina Panthers, who got absolutely demolished by the Saints on Sunday. That'll give another opportunity for Justin Herbert and this team to create some chemistry between him and his weapons. Speaking of his weapons, you guys see that guy on the left side? Oh, Quentin Johnston. Lots of folks worried about Quentin Johnston. And you know what? I'm going to say it, okay? Because sometimes I think it's important to swallow your pride and understand that maybe the hate, and I'm going to say hate because it was pretty obvious in the comment section, even if you're just looking at my videos. The hate on Quentin Johnston, I think, was a little over the top this offseason. And I will say that we went to bat a lot for QJ. And the pushback was a little crazy, but I feel finally that he's starting to come around to folks in terms of their opinion of his potential of a bounce back second year in the NFL. It started for me at training camp. I got to see it for myself. I was getting hyped on some big catches. There's a lot of pushback on the legitimacy of that translating to the season. But I'll tell you what, it worked. He looked awesome this game. And you know why? Because he was utilized as Quentin Johnston and not as Mike Williams. QJ was knifed and wedged into the Mike Williams role in his rookie year. And he is not Mike Williams. He is Quentin Johnston. He's the underneath guy, the slant guy, the yak guy. Get him the ball in space, watch him get to work, and he looked awesome. I don't have his stats pulled in front of me. I should have definitely done that. But I think at least 3 or 4 catches. Got the ball underneath. Set us up, I think, for at least one of those field goals. He is shaping up to look like quite the wide receiver, maybe 2 for this team. And again, he's just getting started. He was catching with his hands. He was turning upfield. There was even one catch that was in traffic, right? It was kind of a Mike Williams situation, where he did go up there and get it with his hands. Of course, the defender put his hands in between, Quentin Johnston, and bumped that ball out, but it was firmly in his grip, right? He's not Mike Williams. He's not going to come down with those, right? But he did catch it with his hands before it got punched out. I think QJ's in for a pretty good bounce back season. Okay. Finally, the last couple of points here. Defensive line. Oh my God, dude. Look at these guys eat. This was nuts. The defensive line deserves a lot of credit here, man. They opened up a lot of opportunity for the edge rushers to feast this week. They really did. These guys stepped up. We were all worried about it. I was worried about it. Jim Harbaugh came out and said, oh, we're not worried about it. This ended up being a strength of the team. We still worried. And then week 1 of the NFL, they come out here and they absolutely dominate. Poona Ford especially, man. What a pickup this offseason. Thunderous in his first game. He was disrupting everything. In 3rd, 4th down stops, which we had several of this game, shockingly. Very impressive. He even logged an interception. He is now currently tied for most interceptions in the NFL. Unbelievable. Morgan Fox was great. Tito was great. I didn't even notice that much Tier Tart this week. So it could get even better if he becomes more involved. He's a fresh signing. He looked great in the preseason, right? The Chargers defensive line might actually be something. Guys, the moments in this game where we were looking at 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 3rd and 2, I think was a big one where I was like, guys, I'm getting giddy. It's 3rd and 2. You know what happens on 3rd and 2? We get big stops. This team is uncharacteristically stonewalling offenses on short yardage conversion situations. It was something to behold. Interior defensive line looks absolutely cracked. So excited to get them to work. Finally, take the points. I think this is a new mentality you gotta appreciate. Jim Harbaugh wasn't messing around. If we could get points, we're going to take points because we got an automatic kicker in Cameron Dicker. Got to give him some props here, man. He's going to help keep us in games for very many weeks this season. Finally, Derwin James and the secondary look very good. You're looking for opportunities. Edge rushers are giving them to you. Chargers defensive backs don't have much to do. They don't have to be out there defending quite as long. Sure, there's a couple of plays out there where, maybe the tackling need a little bit of work. Alexander Madison did hurdle a guy. There were a couple of broken tackles, whatever. But for the most part, this secondary looked great. There was big plays by Devontae Adams. I would say like 3 or 4 of them. But you know what? Asante Samuel, he was on him every time. It's just Devontae Adams, right? He's a special player. But despite that, this defensive back core was actually really strong, and Derwin looked really, really good out there this week. All right, a couple of small things I'll note out because I did get a lot of questions about this during the stream and after the fact in my comment section. Folks are worried about the tight end position and the penalties that they brought. I'm going to say, yeah, that's something that the Chargers probably should look at. The penalties, for one, yes, that can't happen on a Jim Harbaugh team. This is a tuck in your shirt and play by the book sort of, disciplined team. The penalties almost derailed the entire first half for us. The defense came to our rescue a couple of times to help us put up points, but the penalties need to be cleaned up. And they were mainly coming from the tight end position, which is crazy. Tomlinson, a couple from Will Dissly. Got to clean those up. But the big thing I think people are worried about is how limited, or I should say how little exposure the tight end position had this week. I'm going to say don't worry about it too much right now. Again, a lot of it could be a result of Justin Herbert shaking off the rust, right? I think Hayden Hurst could still have a pretty good year. I think Will Dissly, especially once he figures out the penalty thing, is going to end up being a pretty nice weapon. But for right now, I'd say let's slow down a little bit. I think it'll be fine. But I will also note that the tight end position is one that I would be shocked if the Chargers did not make a move on sooner rather than later. Sooner for me used to mean, they're going to grab one in the draft next year. Colson Loveland's a Charger. Already marked that down, right? But now I'm starting to think, hey, Mark Andrews, who's clearly been usurped by Isaiah Likely, could end up being a very early trade target for this team. I wouldn't be shocked. Guys, part of me is like, hey, yeah, watch out for the trade deadline. Maybe we make a move there. But another part of me is like, hey, if we can get them for the season longer, if we can get them up to speed a little bit sooner, why not make a move for Mark Andrews like in the first 3 or 4 weeks, rather than in the tail end of the season. All right, see what we can do with that. He's an ex-Raven, fits the system beautifully. Would definitely be an upgrade at this point. I don't know. Something to note, okay? The weapon concerns kind of falls into that same category. Chargers fans are really worried that we don't have a wide receiver one. I would say, again, be patient, right? I think Ladd McConkey ends up being wide receiver one for this team. Josh Palmer didn't have the best day. He ended up getting in that fight too, which is certainly not going to help him in practice this week. But honestly, guys, again, I think we have something in Ladd. I think we have something in QJ, and I think Palmer can end up having a pretty good bounce back next week. And sure, we can maybe go after a wide receiver one, but I would expect that to be through the draft, which honestly, we may be seeing another ridiculous class of wide receiver. I went and got tickets to see Arizona. Just to see Ted McMillan, man. That's one of several potential Chargers pickups in the draft next season. That could end up being wide receiver one. It's a really good class once again, man. So be patient. We got our guy in Joe Alt. Let's build from the ground up a little bit. Until then, we got some really, I think, honestly, again, the potential of Ladd McConkey is being slept on. His first game as a rookie looked good. Let's imagine what he's going to look like in 4 or 5 weeks. He could end up being one of the top tier receivers in the NFL. Okay. Finally, interior line needs a little bit of work. Yes, I've been talking about this the entire video. Gus Edwards, again, unsung hero in my opinion, softening up the interior of that defensive line of the Raiders, which is very impressive, right? Christian Wilkins is going to be a problem, and he was a problem last night. And it was felt. And we're going to see more teams like that. And Gus Edwards did not see a lot of success because of it. And that's kind of what Jim Harbaugh wants to do, run up the middle as much as possible, right? That did not work. And I think a lot of it, maybe because of the talent of the Raiders and the interior of their defensive line, but I also think we could use a little bit of help in the interior, mainly maybe center and guard. Maybe center, sure, first, and then maybe guard Trey Pip. I don't know. But we'll wait and see. Again, like everything else, we'll be patient. We'll see the Chargers try and figure it out, kind of go from there. All right? Lastly, we're just getting started, okay? Everything that we're talking about, all the success, all the excitement, get ready to get even more hyped up, man. We're playing the Panthers, right? I think we're about to go 2-0. After that, the Steelers. Real big potential for some serious momentum by that game. We could go 3-0. After that, I think it's the Chiefs. A very big test. Winnable, maybe, but honestly, the momentum and the growth of this team over the course of the entire season is what I'm looking at. We are just getting started. And it's a good time to be a Chargers fan, man. Watch out, NFL. The Jim Harbaugh era has arrived, and it's off to a very good start. And as far as Chargers fans are concerned, you're living in the best of times right now. Soak it in. Realize that you're in the good times. And have some fun with it. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Let's go. Jim Harbaugh is here to play.